Die neue Formel für automobile Sportlichkeit im Profiformat ist da. Hochleistungstechnik in Perfektion. Von den Ingenieuren der Bmw Motorsport GmbH für den harten Wettbewerb von Tourenwagenrennen der Klasse A konzipiert. Mit jener eigenständigen Ästhetik, die Sportfahrzeuge für die Grenzbereiche des physikalisch Machbaren auszeichnet. Bmw M3. 2,3 Liter 16-Ventiler auf Formel-1-Basis. 200 PS. 6,7 Sekunden von 0 auf 100. High Performance, hinter der die ganze Kompetenz einer dynamischen Marke steht. Dynamik aus erster Hand. Bmw M3. Freude am Fahren in Reinkultur.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of John's Garage. This week we will take a look at the history of the Bmw E30, which was produced between 1982 and 1994. As usual, you'll get to see and hear many of the Bmw E30 ads and promotional videos from when the E30 was current. So the Bmw E30 was BMW's entry-level luxury car. It was the replacement for the BMW E21 3 Series. The E30 3 Series was initially available as a 3-door coupe, followed in 1983 by a 4-door saloon. The much-loved convertible arrived in 1985 also, and of course, this was the factory version, not the bore version, which was already on sale. And finally, the estate variant, or touring as BMW would have you call it, was released to the public in 1987. It was this variant of the E30 which was to end the production run in 1994. Cars were assembled and built in Munich, Regensburg and Roslin in South Africa. There was also some local assembly of models from complete knockdown kits in Jakarta and Bangkok. Development of the E30 model began in July 1976, led by chief BMW designer Klaus Luth. However, Boyk Boyer was responsible for the final exterior styling, which was signed off in 1978. The E30 owes a lot to the E21 which it replaced. The appearance was very similar, however quad headlights set the exterior styling apart. However, it was the restyled interior and exterior changes to the suspension system which really addressed some of the major criticisms of the E21. The E30 would have no problems in these areas. Initially, the E30 used engines carried over from the E21. However, over time, these 4- and 6-cylinder engines were updated and replaced to more modern engines. Also in this time, the 3 Series gained a diesel engine for the first time in the form of the 324 TD. Most of these engines I've discussed previously in the BMW E28 video, so I'll avoid that here today, but there is one engine I'd like to talk about in a little more detail. That engine is the BMW S14 Inline 4 engine. Yep, a 4-cylinder is the most interesting engine I could think of in the E30 series of cars to talk about, especially given the brilliant range of 6-cylinder engines that BMW were producing at this time. However, for those of you not in the know, this little 4-banger was the beating heart of a legend and the genesis, if you will, of a halo model to beat them all. This was the first engine fitted to an M3 BMW. It all started with a 4-cylinder. The S14 is a direct overhead cam 4-cylinder petrol engine. There's no turbos or superchargers fitted here back in the mid-1980s to this racing legend. The head of the engine was based closely on the S38 6-cylinder, and the block was very similar to that of the BMW M10 engine. This allowed the engine to redline at 7,250 RPM, very high for the time and added to the sporting nature of this driving machine. Initially, the engine came with 192 horsepower. This is far less impressive today, but you have to consider that this was a lot lighter than modern cars, even at that time, weighing in at 1,165 kgs. Top speed was 146 miles per hour, which is still impressive today. Over the production run of the M3 model, power was increased with the Evo 2 and 3 models, as was engine size. The M3 was commonly available as a coupe, but some convertibles were made, I believe less than 400 from my research. Regardless of the body style, you only had one gearbox option, a 5-speed manual. Production lasted from March 1986 to June 1991, and in that time, a total of 17,970 examples were produced. The initial production run was supposed to only be 5,000 units so that BMW could race them in the German Touring Car Championship. But with these numbers, BMW knew they had to continue production of a Halo M3 models, especially in later generations such as the E36 and the E46. It should also be noted that the BMW Z1 Roadster was based on the E30 platform. This was a quirky little two-seater convertible with doors that dropped down into the sills of the car. Production began to wind down in 1990 due to the introduction of the E36. All variants began to be phased out until the final touring model was produced in 1994 for the 1995 model year. In total, 2.4 million E30s were produced over the 12-year production run. And today, the E30 has rightly gone on to be one of the most revered models BMW has ever produced. Values are currently going up rapidly, but to me, this is slightly sad. The E30 was loved by enthusiasts the world over because of its great handling and build quality, but also because it was easy to maintain and modify on a budget and for the novice mechanic. Sadly, with increasing values, that means they're becoming priced out of the reach of motoring novices and are being seen more as investments for the future. A real pity in my mind. So listen, thank you all very much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for listening along with me and participating and subscribing. But it's goodbye for now. Thank you all.